Hey guys, it's Melissa. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're having a great week. I wanted to pop in today with the answer to probably the number one question that comes through my email, which is, why isn't my machine cutting? Okay, so we're going to talk about today 3 of the main reasons why your Silhouette CAMEO 4 specifically is not cutting. So it all starts in the software. Okay, so here's the thing. If you don't have the cut settings correct, your machine, it may look like it's going around, but it might not be cutting, or it might not be cutting completely. This is really specific to the material, but I can tell you that for the CAMEO 4 Plus and Pro, the cut settings, the default cut settings for vinyl and HTV specifically are not accurate and they don't work. They have a blade depth of 4, okay? Excuse me, a force of 4. The force needs to be 14, okay? So if the force is not correct and if you're cutting and your blade is going around, but it's basically just kind of like etching on there and you're having a really hard time weeding, number one thing to check, make sure the force for vinyl and HTV specifically is on 14, because the default cut settings that include a force of 4 don't work. Okay, number 2 reason your CAMEO 4 might not be cutting, because you don't have cut lines turned on. Also, this is in Silhouette Studio. Now, a telltale sign of this is if you're in Silhouette Studio and you send your design to cut and instantly it says that the job is complete. That means if nothing ever even happened, that means you don't have the cut lines on. You need to, in the send panel, there's a preview of your design on the left side, select it, and then under action, click cut. Okay, that will turn on those bold red cut lines and that will make your machine cut. Okay, so that's number 2, big thing. So first one, force is not correct. It should be 14 for vinyl and HTV. Number 2, you don't have cut lines on. And number 3 is actually, even if you have those 2 things happening, with the cut lines on and the force correct, if you don't have your blade loaded correctly in the carriage, it's not going to cut, or totally opposite, it's gonna cut clear through your material. Now here's the thing, how is the blade supposed to be in the machine? We're talking about carriage 1 here, the cutting blade, okay? I am using, in this case, this is a 1mm blade, okay? This is a manually adjustable blade. I prefer this blade, it gives me a little bit more control. Not that I'm a control freak, but I like this blade best. However, if you're using an auto blade, or even this 1mm blade, if you don't have the blade set correctly, it is not going to be able to touch the material. Or, in the case of the auto blade, it's not going to adjust correctly. So, I'm gonna try to get as close as I can. This is the bottom of the blade, right here, okay? This lip needs to be flush with the top of this blade carriage. There cannot be any gap. So if I ever email you back and say, make sure there's no gap on when your blade's in the carriage, that's what I'm talking about, okay? Your blade needs to be completely down. I'm gonna try to get you as close up as I can. So it looks like that, okay? No gap. You don't want your blade, you should see some of the emails that I get. I'm not kidding you. Because this seems like it should be intuitive, but it's not, because sometimes the blade is hard to insert. I'll have people who email me and the blade is like this. There's literally no way the blade can touch. Then I have people who email and say it's not touching and the blade is like this. And there's a very, very small gap, but you can see that gap there. Any bit of gap is going to cause your machine either, again, not to cut at all because it can't reach the material, or in this case where there's a teeny gap, what happens is when your blade tries to tap to adjust, it's not adjusting correctly. It usually ends up sitting on a blade depth of 10, which means the blade is then exposed too much. And even though the whole blade system, the body of the blade is not far enough down, the actual blade itself is too far down and it cuts through the material. Okay, so there's 2 things there. If your blade is cutting through the material, you likely have a gap. If your blade is not cutting at all, but it's going around, you might not have the blade down enough, okay? So no gap, that's what you want. So just to recap, 3 main reasons why. I swear I get dozens of these emails every day, every week. 3 main reasons why your machine's not cutting. Cut lines are not on in the send panel. The cut settings are not correct. Usually we're talking about vinyl or HTV. Again, increase the force to 14. And number 3, the blade is not correctly inserted into the blade carriage. This seems like it should be fail-proof, but it's not, unfortunately, because you have access to lock the blade even when the blade is not correctly inserted. So just keep those 3 things in mind. Those are the 3 things you should check before you throw your machine out the window, okay? All right, you guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you later. How do I turn this off?